Hello, hello, and welcome everyone. Hola, my lovely community. I am really excited about this special. I mean, they're all special. I always say this, but everyone is special. But I keep saying this is special because this is really a special. Welcome to my Elevative Shots. Always aiming to give you a shot of knowledge, experiences, insights, not just from me, in fact, not mainly from me, but from my amazing guests and speakers that are accepting the invite to be here with us today. And because we need to keep it as a shot, let me welcome Alfred Chidembo. Is that how we say it, Alfred? I just want to get it right.
Spot on, Mariana. You got it right. That's exactly what it is.
Welcome, Alfred. Alfred is on so many things, and the reason why I invited Alfred to our shot today, before I tell you a little bit of his story, is because we both believe in the power of connection with ourselves, connection with others in the workplace, at home, in our volunteer roles, the importance of connection, which is the topic of our shot today. And let me tell you a little bit of Alfred and the reason why he's here. From the heart of Africa to the dynamic stages of Australia, Alfred is one of the most inspirational storytellers you will ever encounter. I can tell you that. Driven by the ancient African philosophy of Ubuntu, and because we are, Alfred is revolutionizing workplace culture and team dynamics with a message that is both timeless and transformative. Alfred's journey is remarkable. From walking to school barefoot in the first year of primary school to earning a PhD in Australia, he realized his dreams via education, entrepreneurship, and the inspiring teachings of Ubuntu. Today, he works with teams where he applies strategic insight and problem-solving skills to implement best practices throughout the employee life cycle. We connected a while ago this year, and it wasn't enough time. It wasn't enough time to sharing different stories and seeing the synergies. Incredible, just magical. So, Alfred, welcome to Elevative Shots. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much, Mariana. I'm doing really well. Really looking forward to having this discussion with you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. And I always like to start our conversations by sharing a fun fact. So I shared your bio and your experience, which is fantastic, but tell us a fun fact about Alfred.
Hmm. Let me think about this one, Mariana. Fun fact. One of my favorite TV shows is actually Home and Away. And you'll be wondering why I love Home and Away. It's because when I was growing up, I still remember when I was in high school in Zimbabwe, we used to watch Home and Away on national TV every lunchtime. So I was in boarding school, so you'd be sitting there with about, 50, 60 boys there just watching Home and Away while you're having lunch. So since then, I've just started watching Home and Away, grown up with it, and I just continue watching it even when I moved to Australia.
Oh, there you go. Well, yeah, sometimes last guest's fun fact was around her visiting her 25th country, which is
Yeah, wow.
yeah, yeah. I think 25th or 75. I don't know, but it's a big difference. But anyway, it's not about her,
Yeah.
it's about you, Alfred, and Elevative Shots. Yeah, three questions, different stories from fantastic guests. We're gonna kick off with the first question, Alfred, for you. Connection as a leadership advantage. So in today's world, which is quite fast-paced, leaders are expected to drive results. Yet real impact from comes from building a strong relationships, right? How, from your point of view, how can leaders cultivate that genuine and authentic human to human connection to foster trust engagement and high performance teams?
Oh my word, Mariana, that's a loaded question, right? Because, and we only have 20 minutes. Oh my
I
goodness, where do I
know.
even start?
Well, we might
Uh,
have to do another version. Like we do different episodes.
Yeah, but I always like to start with connection, right? We talk about connection, we talk about genuine connection, we talk about authenticity, and these are all words that we throw around, but we never really touch on what is it, what does it really look like when you genuinely connect? In our day-to-day life and also in the workplace, because this is not just something that you start doing at work, but in your daily life you don't know how to do. So it becomes something that you adopt as an individual, as a leader. It's really looking at yourself and saying, hey, where are the gaps? What can I start to do better? How can I connect better with people? And if you adopt that, if you adopt, connection is one of your values, then it means that it becomes a part of you. And because it becomes a part of you and it's something that you do on a day-to-day basis, you don't have to worry about authenticity. And this is what it looks like, especially when you're trying to build high-performing teams. At least from my own experiences, I've noticed that we talk about high-performing teams. We come up with frameworks. We say this is what you need to do, da 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 da, and you communicating that with the team. But the team are looking at you as a leader and thinking, you're telling us all of these things. You're telling us about conflict resolution, how we resolve conflict, how we focus on our goals as a high-performing team, but we don't even have a connection with you. So it starts with the leader because in most workplaces, as a leader, you have this strategic view from the balcony and you're watching everyone on the dance floor. So you have this, wide spectrum that you can look at with all your stuff on the dance floor. And from that vantage point, you have a strategic, you need to be thinking strategically on how best you can move people around so that they can do their best work. But at some point, you need to come down onto the dance floor, really catch the vibe, really get a good understanding of where people are. And this is where we build those connections because now you come up with strategy that people do not relate to because you have not taken time to walk in their shoes. And that's empathy, really building, those relationships because you're driven by empathy and curiosity to understand where people are.
Wow, yeah, I something you said, I always like to sort of like highlight the things that, you know, resonated the most with me is how as a leader you can start seeing connection as one of your values. And I guess I never thought it that way, right? When I look at my values, it's community, fun, perseverance, but connection, right? I think it's we just take it for granted, right? Because we are humans, so we connect. But
Yeah.
realistically, are we connecting, right? Meaningfully?
Yeah, and I find that, when I look at having moved from Zimbabwe to Australia, I realize that there are certain things that come from my own culture, these which are just expected of you. You see a stranger on the path,
Mm,
you greet them, you connect with them. And it's not just a greeting, just a hi, hi, and then you walk past. It's a whole process of really engaging with somebody and understanding who they are, where they are, and where they are going, right? So that greeting on its own, especially if you meet someone on a path, whom even if you don't know them, that greeting is to establish that connection. And you
mm,
start by acknowledging them. You acknowledge them for being in the same spaces you're in. And from a neuroscience perspective, that releases oxytocin. And we are all looking for that, right? We are all looking for acknowledgement wherever we go. It means we are all looking to connect. And then you clarify, you're asking them questions, open-ended questions, and say, hey, eh, how are the kids at home? How's everyone else doing at home, right? And then they share with you. And when they do that, again, you have dopamine levels that's just going up. And then you confirm, right? You confirm, their position and your position. You build that psychological safety, and at that point, serotonin levels go up. So we are all looking for these for these connection points, and also, you know, as human beings, I'd like to believe there's no one who says I never want to connect with anyone because we know the value that comes from those connections.
yeah, no, 100%. And I want to, go back to to change, because the next question, it's around adaptability through connection. So we looked at connection as a leadership advantage or potentially as a leadership skill, right? That, and as you said, as a value. But now, how can we use connection to adapt through change? Because, change is inevitable. And I think it's something that we should be framing as something positive, right? For learning and development. But often the biggest challenge with change is getting people embrace it, right? To embrace that change. So how can we use connection, or how can we see authentic connection as a tool that can help leaders navigate uncertainty, reduce that resistance, and create a culture of adaptability in high pressure, especially in high pressure environments?
When you look at high pressure environments, what people normally do is there's a narrative that we throw around in high pressure environments, and sometimes we glorify that. We say we are busy. Oh, we are so busy to the point where we can't do anything else, and that becomes our narrative. But then
Mm-hmm.
at some point, we really need to look at how people are going. We really need to be checking on their well-being, because you could have somebody who's sitting in your team. Remember, I was talking about the balcony and the dance floor. On that dance floor, there's somebody who's in the corner who's not dancing, who's just not feeling the rhythm because they're probably burnt out. And if you're not going down onto that dance floor and talking to somebody like that, you will never know that they are burnt out. So you lose visibility on what's actually going on with your team. So the connection really, it's important from that perspective, where you come down and you kind of talking to people. What I normally do at work is I do pit stops. I call them pit stops. So I walk on the floor and I'm talking to everyone, gauging where
Mm-hmm.
people are. And those pit stops really don't need to take too much time. It's less than 5 minutes. Just talking to somebody, say, hey, how are you going today? How are things going? And you will notice, if you, as a leader, if you put your feelers on the ground, you start to see the body language. You start to see where people
Mm.
are. Some people will tell you, hey, I'm exhausted. You don't walk past somebody who's exhausted. At least you lead with curiosity and you ask, hey, what's really happening in your space? Then you know that that person probably on that day, if they are giving 20%, maybe that's their 100%.
Mm.
And you start thinking of how best you can support them. But then change, like you rightfully said, Mariana, change, we'll always be experiencing change in our workplaces. And I'd like to use a metaphor of the boat and the oar. So, when change happens to you, it's like you are on a boat without an oar. And this boat is just drifting wherever the current takes you.
Mm-hmm.
And how would you feel in a space like that? You feel powerless, right? You feel like you're just being tossed by the waves. Waves that you didn't even create, because it's change that's coming to you. And you're
Mm-hmm.
heading toward a destination that you didn't choose. But then imagine when you give somebody an oar in an environment like that, and you become part of the change. It's like being handed that oar and suddenly you have agency. You can steer the boat. You can help to steer the boat and adjust your direction with the team, and you feel the strength of the current working with you, not against you. And you may not control the tide, but you do have a control on the journey itself. And this is why I love metaphors, because they really bring out the true essence of some of these things that we experience in the workplace.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I love metaphors for everything. It's they bring, and I think that's the link between a metaphor and the storytelling, right? I like to every time I facilitate or train, or even, when you provide advice in the consultancy world, it's how you explain the importance of connecting before getting into content, right? And
Yeah.
for many people, it's like, well, I'm not like that, because I don't feel that's genuine. Like when people ask me about my weekend, I feel that that's not authentic. They don't really want to know about me. And
Yeah.
that's a pretty interesting insight, right? When people don't feel that people are being authentic, right? And it's how we feel before we think, right? And even your if you regardless of your thinking style, we we tend to go into the emotional side of things before we tend into the rational side of things. So how we understand that, and that having that self-awareness of the importance of storytelling, and as part of the connection piece. As you said, the pit stops, I really like that because it takes you 1%, right? Stopping and asking from the genuine self, and trying over and over. I think that's where you build that trust.
Yeah, yeah, that is so true, Mariana, because we talk about building the trust, right? But it just doesn't stop with building trust. It goes on to the next level. You're talking about psychological safety.
Yep.
And especially in a change process, if you're going to be running focus groups, you need to have that psychological safety. And how, as a leader who who does not know what's happening on the ground, and now all of a sudden, because we have change, I'm asking for psychological safety. This is where you hear leaders walking into a room and saying, "This is a safe space."
Mhm.
The moment you feel that you have to to verbalize that, then there's an issue, right? It's creating safe spaces, you sometimes you don't even need to verbalize it. You walk into that space and people already feel safe because they know you, they can relate to you, they know who you are, they know what your values are, they know what your leadership shadow looks like, right? And that comes from real connection, building relationships, taking time to build those relationships, so much that when you now get into a boat where you have the winds of change blowing towards you, you come together. You know when to come together as a group and what you do in a space like that because you set the culture around that. And everyone knows exactly what they're supposed to do. Everyone can grab an oar and they know exactly where the current is going and where the direction is because you've set these standards from the get-go. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done
Mm.
before the change happens. We need to be constantly working on our teams, building that resilience earlier on by getting the alignment and the cohesion early on.
But if you think about connection as being one of your values, you might think that it's something that comes naturally to you, meaning that you create this safe space that is not that is part that's the culture of the team, right? And something you said in terms of if we verbalize this is a safe space or not, it's interesting, right? Because yeah, as you said, if it's a safe space, we don't have to mentioned, and I'm reflecting on it, right? And it should be something that it comes automatically for the team. But as any other leadership skill, I think this is everything we've been discussing today takes time. Takes
Yep,
time and tends. I tend to use three keywords for me that I think that have driven my work, which is intentionally, like we have to do things with intention and
yep,
understanding your why and your deep, purpose and values. Frequency is, what you do frequently. It's what becomes progress, right, in that process, and consistency.
yep,
So if we do things consistently, it's as connecting with authenticity consistently, frequently, and with intention. I guess I trust that there's a psychological safe space for people.
yep. Spot on. That's exactly what it is.
Well, I guess the last bit I want to conclude, I want to, invite you to reflect and tell us what's your opinion on this is, I think we have touched on this, but the rolling of communication when we are connecting, right? So what do you think is the main difference in between communicating change and connecting people to it? So, and how can leaders make that shift, right? Not only the corporate communications, but a truly connected content that can actually engage people.
Yeah, I feel that in change processes, communication has to be really spot on because you can easily lose people in a space like that because there's so much uncertainty, right?
Mm.
And the best way to, again, I'll come back to the greeting on a path in Africa. You see somebody, you acknowledge them. you want to acknowledge them first, say, hey, I see you. And this is where Ubuntu comes in. I am because you are because I am. I see you. And
Mm,
if you are in pain, your pain is my pain. If you're, celebrating success, your success is my success. And that's just a philosophy. For me, it's a philosophy that I've grown up with. I don't need to go looking for it. It's just something that is within me. But you would actually think, you know, something like that is not present in the Western society. It is. It is present in Western society. We are all looking for that. Only that we may have different ways of articulating it and different names that we put to that philosophy. But it's to say, I acknowledge you, I see you. And in that change process, that communication needs to be really clear to say, hey, I acknowledge you. I acknowledge where you are. You could be anxious about this. Yes, I acknowledge that. And I do not try to play it down, but I acknowledge it. And then I need to clarify so that there are no assumptions. I need to clarify that where you are, is this really exactly where it is? And that's where, as a leader, you're coming in with a coaching approach, really getting to understand where people are and helping to steer them in the direction that you need them to go in, so that you take that anxiety away. You take all these other things, because with communication, it's the things that we don't say, right, that are so important. And sometimes we miss out on that. So we want to make sure that we are clarifying and we confirm, so that as we move together, as we move forward, we are moving as a group. No one is left behind.
mm,
So I feel that that communication needs to happen early on. In most change processes that I've seen, people just come in and then you get an email and say, hey, next week, this is what we're doing. And you are expected to just come on board. But if we start early on, it means we have ample time to have the open discussions, to have the candid discussions. And I like to use the Ubuntu alignment circle that a framework that I've created, where you start by hosting open team dialogues.
mm,
And the Ubuntu principle there is community and participation. Open team dialogues, you come together as a team and you have these conversations, right? Then you share feedback. You are sharing feedback both ways. And the Ubuntu principle is just respect and dignity. We're showing respect and dignity to these people who are part of my team, part of my organization, to say change is not just happening to you alone. We are all in it together, right?
mhm,
Then the third one is to re-clarify. You're re-clarifying expectations collaboratively. And in the Ubuntu principle that's attached to that is co-responsibility. We all have a responsibility. And then you start to highlight the shared vision and the purpose. If you highlight that for people, they get clarity. And what you're doing there, according to the Ubuntu principles, you're building interconnectedness. And we
mm,
all need that, especially in teams. We need that interconnectedness. And last but not least, you're co-creating growth opportunities, you personal development within the community. This is my framework, which I've been working with. It's an Ubuntu alignment circle, and that's how you bring people along and make sure that no one is left behind and everyone feels that they are valued and they're part of the change.
it's a beautiful framework.
Yeah.
It makes and you might think, well, it's not necessarily the guide to communicate for communication, but yes, it's communication in every level and every sense, not just for you as a leader, but also if you're part of a comms team or a part of a change team. This is something that we all should be, I suppose, following to bring people on the journey, rather than, as you said, inviting them to be part of the change when we are ready to implement, which is what normally happens.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting dynamic there. Well, I mean, as I said, we could be speaking here forever. There's so much that I got out of this short conversation, Alfred. I am really grateful. I'm really grateful for you sharing your experience with us. And is there anything you want to add before we finish today?
Oh, Marianne, I always have a lot to share, but I'll just encourage. It's really just to encourage people. Sometimes we just say leaders need to do this, but again, it's the misalignment that happens between misalignment in expectations that happen between leaders and their team members. Sometimes, as team members, individuals, we also need to to come to the party, right? We need to show up. We also need to uh, show that we are proactive, and we are part of the team, and we raise up our hands and say, hey, I don't want my voice to be just a whimper from the corner, but I want it to be a voice that has got authority, where I can speak up and share and be innovative. Otherwise, if I stay silent, people miss out on the creativity that you bring into the workplace.
Mm.
And for leaders, saying, let's come down from that balcony sometimes, really get a good feel of what's happening, dance to the tune of our own team and the rhythm of our own team, because that is our culture. And once we start dancing to that rhythm together, guess what? It shows up in the organization's approach to work and how we serve the communities, that we work with, and our clients.
Dancing on the dance floor. It's what I'm taking, showing up, dancing, listening, active listening to what's going on that floor, on
Yeah,
that dance floor, and asking the
yeah.
questions, asking powerful, open-ended questions. Well, Alfred, thank you so much for being part of this elevative shot about connections as part of one of the leadership skills uh, for for leaders, not just by role, hey, but anyone building those beautiful skills. I thank you all for watching this. I will share Alfred's details if you want to keep, having that connection with Alfred. I know that he does his Connect
Connect
Fridays,
Connect Fridays, yes.
where he meaningfully takes and intentionally takes the time to connect with people. And I was part of it. So I guess that's how this idea was born. So thank you. And thank you all. Um, Comments, suggestions, recommendations are always opened for the next elevative shot. And I wish you all a fantastic rest of the day. And thank you, Alfred, again. And I will see you all soon. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.